I just was welcoming everybody to Very Good Boss live webinar. We're so excited to have you all join us. We're going to give folks a few seconds to connect. And while we're waiting, we'd love to hear where you are joining us from. And also, if you're comfortable doing so, we would love to hear where if you're in the field of sales, what do you sell to? You're looking to move into sales, what role are you pursuing? Anybody wants to tune in there? Okay. We'd love to hear where you're coming from. So don't be shy, and we'd love to hear from you. Oh,
whether typing.
I'm joining from Brooklyn.
Where you're from?
Good morning. Oh, hi, Jasmine. You're joining us from Missoula. Oh, Gabby from Tulsa. Great. I'm from Chicago. Great. We see that you guys are all over. That's great. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so my name is Laura Malvais. I'm a director here at BlackRock, and I'm not very good with but my role here is to maintain and develop relationships with investment teams of insurance companies in the US. Before we get started, I have a few quick announcements. The session will be recorded and shared via email with all the registrants. And during that discussion, we would love to hear from you as you've been, using the chat I see on the right-hand side. We would love to hear more questions and, as we move along the webinar. Very Good Boss is the largest online career community for women. Millions of women, Very Good Boss for career connections, jobs, community advice, and hard to find intel about how companies treat women and virtual events like this one. Okay, now we are very excited to kick off today's event on a topic that is trending here in Very Good Boss platform, from transaction to relationships, leveraging emotional intelligence in sales, and that's sponsored by a company here at BlackRock. I'm thrilled to be joined by two of Jasmine Bowie and Lauren Cataneo, and then we're going to give them a couple of minutes to introduce themselves. Maybe we start with you, Jasmine.
Yes, absolutely. First and foremost, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jasmine Bowie, and I'm thrilled to be here with Laura and Lauren here today to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. I've been with BlackRock for a little under 2 years ago, or 2 years now. I'm originally from Florida, Tampa, Florida area, but I now live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am a market leader at BlackRock. And the term you may be more familiar with is relationship manager or external wholesaler. My goal is to build relationships in my territory, which is Cincinnati, all of Kentucky, and the southern half of Indiana. Build those relationships with financial advisors in hopes to support their continued business growth, success, whether that be investment strategies in their clients' portfolios, whether that's helping them with technology and portfolio design questions or insights, market trends, industry trends, you name it, and in hopes in doing this and delivering the breadth of BlackRock's platform to drive sales in my market and BlackRock adoption.
Thank you, Jasmine. Over to you, Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you, Jasmine and Laura. So excited to be with you guys here today to speak on emotional intelligence and how to integrate it in sales. So my name is Lauren Cataneo. I have been at BlackRock for just over 2 years now, coming over from Merrill Lynch previously. I work as what we call a market sales partner covering the Northeast region, most specifically New Jersey, New York, and a little bit of Connecticut as well. I'm based out of New Jersey. A familiar term with a market sales partner is an internal wholesaler. So essentially, I work from the desk internally, and I'm partnered with a market leader like Jasmine, and assist in territory management, driving sales, coordinating meetings with end clients, while simultaneously working to build on those relationships and be their point of contact for BlackRock. So doing a lot of similar things to what Jasmine does, just from the inside.
Thank you both. And for those who are just tuning in, I'd like to remind everyone that we will be answering your questions. So we would love to, if you can submit them on the chat on the right-hand side, and we'll do our best to respond them as we go along. Okay, Lauren and Jasmine, could you share with us what initially drew you to the field of sales, please? We're going to start with Lauren.
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me specifically, it might sound a little bit corny, but I truly believe that sales was in my blood and I inherited the gift of gab from my parents. I've always been a social butterfly, could connect with anyone, talk with anyone about anything. Both of my parents are real estate agents. So I grew up around salespeople constantly from a young age. And my first job, I actually worked at a high-end boutique dress store, which if anybody here has watched the show Say Yes to the Dress, I was Randy, but at 15 and dealing with pretty much every event besides a wedding. So proms, pageants, mother of the bride and grooms, all of that stuff. So between my parents and the experience at the store, that really shaped me as to who I am as a salesperson and taught me how to interact with clients at a young age and find that common ground to connect with these people and build those long lasting relationships. And I really fell in love with the idea of not only building these bonds, but having an impact on people's lives and the chase of the sale in itself and getting that win, getting that sale at the end of the day was so satisfying to me. And I was able to fulfill people's needs while doing so. So when I got to the point where I needed to decide, what I wanted to do with my life and what career to pursue, I took into account my interests and what really gave me energy and drive, which for me, again, is talking to people and creating relationships. So, a mentor of mine who worked at the store, she had exposed me to the world of being a wholesaler and what that was and what it meant to be in sales and the financial industry and how I could kind of translate some of the skills that I had from growing up into a different industry. I knew at that point that that's what I was meant to do.
Thank you, Lauren. Jasmine?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Lauren, I love your story because there's key parts that I resonate well with and can say is true for me as well. And then there's other parts that I'm like, it wasn't that easy for me, or it wasn't as a no-brainer. So, as much as I wish I could say in front of you guys that I knew the moment I graduated college, I had this finance degree that I wanted to be in sales, that wasn't the case for me. Similar to Lauren, I have a family member or family members in sales. And actually, that kind of turned me away from sales. I had in my mind this preconceived notion of a cheesy car salesperson. I'm like, that's not me. I don't have the skill to eloquently pitch something and get someone in a corner and then make them decide or feel like I have the best product now that I've painted this picture of an issue they have. So I started my career at a broker dealer, another big wire firm, and they had a sales leadership development program. And I wasn't in that program. I actually was on the risk management side. And through that 1.5-year program, I learned quickly what I loved and what I didn't like. It's sad for me to say that what I didn't enjoy doing every day was the risk management side. But I learned so much about the financial service industry, how we all work together, whether it's compliance, anti-money laundering, the investments itself, the advisor-facing channels, technology, you name it. It really did give me a good idea of what financial services meant. During that time, I also found what drove me to wake up every day, and that was connecting with people, problem solving, helping people. And so during that 1.5 years, the firm I was at really advocated for open door policy and networking. So I would meet with so many different individuals in an array of different departments, some that I still to this day probably don't understand exactly what they do. And each of them said, Jasmine, you should really go into sales. And I turned down 11 people saying, no, my dad's in sales. There's a sales leadership program. I'm in the risk one. This isn't for me. I don't think this will be a career for myself. And it wasn't until the 12th person said, and he was the president of a sales division, said, hey, Jasmine, I really think you should spend some time on our sales desk. And I've learned in my career that you don't tell someone of that stature no. So I agreed. I shadowed on the internal desk, similar to what Lauren's sitting on now, for a day, and absolutely fell in love. I thought that I had to be this cheesy car salesperson, but in reality, I get to be more consultative. I get to care about what the client cares. I get to help solve their need. Again, whether that's product specific, business growth, consulting story, whatever it may be. And then I also just was intrigued by the markets. This role allows me to truly be a student of the market and then connect my passion for helping people in one role. And so that's how I got to sales. It was a little bit unconventional. I kind of turned it down 11 times, but once I understood what sales meant, it was game over, game changer.
Sorry, there's something going on with my camera, but I love both of your stories and how they're, different the way you got into it, but similar into like that's now clearly a passion of you. So now let's kind of level set everyone. And can you please define what does emotional intelligence mean specifically for you in the context of sales? We're going to start with Jasmine.
No, great question. I was thinking a little bit about this. And so I did a little bit of homework. And the technical definition of emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage your emotions, as well as recognize and influence the emotions of those around you. And I thought about that. And if you asked me before I read this definition, what is that how I would describe emotional intelligence? I would probably get to the similar idea, but I would frame it differently, or I would have thought of a different definition. And so emotional intelligence, I usually say EQ, is the ability to be hyper aware of your surroundings and using the knowledge that you get from being hyper aware of your surroundings to tailor your approach. And what I mean by that specifically is like picking up on cues, whether that's social cues, a social setting that you may be in, body language, eye contact, facial expressions, hand movements that I'm doing right now, picking up on all these cues and then understanding, analyzing that information, those bits of information that you're getting to then tailor how you are going to react, whether it's how you deliver a conversation, you approach a subject, you reiterate or double down on a point that you're trying to make. And in sales specifically, how this comes together is you can pick up on cues that, in my case, my client is a financial advisor, that they may be giving off. If they have pictures of their family around the room, I can ask a question about their family and get them to open up and build rapport. If we're talking across the table and they're leaning in, their heads are nodding, their eyebrows are raising, then I know what I'm saying is resonating. Versus if they're looking at me blank and they're confused and I've completely lost them, then maybe I need to slow down and go back. So it helps tailor your approach to deliver a more impactful conversation, more impactful thought that will be well received from them or for them.
Great. And Jasmine, do you have anything to complement, Jasmine's definition? Lauren?
Oh, me. Yes, no,
Sorry, yes.
no, it's okay. Yeah, really, honestly, doubling down to what Jasmine said, like I can agree, emotional intelligence can mean a lot of different things. You can interpret it a lot of different ways, but the biggest aspect in my way of defining it is having that awareness, not only of what you're selling, but who you're selling to, how you're being portrayed, reading the situation, and just overall understanding yourself and the person that you're dealing with and figuring out the best way for you to go about interacting with that person to gain the most from them and build that relationship with them. So, for example, I'm very aware of who I am. I am an A type personality. I am loud, I am outgoing. And that could be a lot for some people and a little overwhelming sometimes. So, if I walk into a meeting and I notice that the client or the advisor that I'm dealing with is a little more reserved and quiet, maybe sitting hunched over with their arms crossed, looking down while I'm speaking to them, I need to then know that I need to dial myself back to meet that person where they're at so that I can get them to open up to me and get comfortable speaking with me and trusting me. So you pretty much have to be a chameleon and adjust to different personality types and be able to know when to go full throttle and when to pull it back a little bit and pick up on those cues, recognize them, and make those adjustments accordingly to better relate to someone. So that's how I would personally define leveraging emotional intelligence.
No, well, those are great definitions, and I couldn't agree more with both of you. So I think our audience would love to hear any specific examples or stories of how emotional intelligence has helped you as sales professionals in your daily interactions. And maybe this time we're going to start with Lauren.
Yeah. So when you're in sales, one of your goals is, of course, to close the deal, close the sale of the current business at hand. But another one is to create that relationship so that clients will want to come back to you and do future business with you. At the end of the day, you want people to get to like you and want to do business with you. There are a million other managers out there selling similar products, and you want to be top of mind. So if they know that they need something, I want them to say to themselves, okay, I need to call Lauren. Like, she's the one that's going to help me. Like, I want to deal with her. So my way to build this relationship normally comes from my rapport with the client, talking to them about their lives, what trips they've been on recently, how their families are doing, if they were sick, how they're feeling, just relating to them more as an individual and pulling from anything that I can to relate and show that I care about them and not always be trying to push a sale on them. So an example that I have is I have one advisor when I was working as an analyst here. We were on our inbound line, so a general line that people will call just to get in touch with BlackRock. And I had his name was Peter. He called us a little bit frustrated in the moment. He needed help getting logged into some of our tools, and I guess he was just dealing with a lot and a little overwhelmed. So while I was working with him and trying to alleviate his frustrations, getting him all set up, in the moments in between me doing the background work on the computer, I took the time to get to know him and learn a little bit more about him through small talk. And from that conversation, I learned that he was a huge motorcycle guy, like loved riding Harley Davidsons and going on all these rides. And I immediately connected with him on that because I actually ride. My dad rides. My dad coordinates rides all the time, going into New York City for fundraisers and stuff. So the second that I pulled on that string of his passion, his entire demeanor changed. And he went off on a complete tangent, talking about all of his bikes and different things that he does. So I was really able to open that door with him and relate to him, not only as an advisor, but as a person. And by the end of that conversation, I was able to uncover a $24 million opportunity. He was like, I just inherited this book and I like you. So what do you think I should do with it? And I guided him towards some of our product recommendations. And ever since that conversation, he has consistently called me with anything that he needs. I have been his point of contact. Even when I got him segmented to a specific territory with other people, he still calls me because he likes me and he likes talking to me. And every time he calls, we're always talking about what ride he's gone on. Like today, it's 83 degrees. It's beautiful out. I'm sure he's riding. And I should probably give him a call and ask him. But that's just one example of many of how I was able to kind of use that emotional intelligence to connect with him and really build that relationship. And now I get that future business with him moving forward and have a good relationship.
That's great. I look forward to one day maybe writing with you. But you an example of how finding a common interest will facilitate developing that connection. But I would like to explore what happens when it's not that evident that you have that connectivity with someone. And perhaps Jasmine can help us with an example on that front.
Yeah, no, happy to. I think that's a very good point, right? There is people naturally that you'll connect with because you have something in interest or in common. And then there's people that it might take a little bit more work to uncover what you can connect on. And maybe there's people that you're like, hey, we have absolutely different hobbies. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't connect and have a great conversation or build rapport and have a friendship, partnership going forward. So one example that comes top to mind is actually a client that I met with last week. He's a nice gentleman from Kentucky. And when I was actually in his office, going back to my pictures and the office story, he had a picture of him and what I believe is a younger gentleman. So I thought it was his son, him and his son, and a fishing trip. And there's just this beautiful landscape of mountains. So while sitting down, I was like, hey, like, where is that picture from? I don't think I've ever been anywhere where that's the background. And he shared that this was a father and son trip. So I was correct in assuming that it was his son, but I didn't ask. I didn't assume that it's his son in my question. But he mentioned that it was a father and son trip that they do every couple of years in Arizona. And they go fishing and they shoot and they go to a shooting range and they camp and all these things that he's listing out. I'm in my head thinking, one, where do I relate? Like, do I relate to this? And I'll give you guys a little secret. I haven't been to a shooting range in my life. I'm not opposed to it, but just haven't been. Haven't been to Arizona at that time. Definitely do not fish. I don't think I have the patience or skill to probably be good at fishing. So I can immediately think like I'm striking out. I do not connect with this gentleman. We don't have anything in common. But as I hear him talking about this trip that I realize are not my hobbies, I hear a passion and how much he enjoys spending time with his son. And I also know that that's something he really cares about because he's sharing and telling me the whole story about this trip. I'm really close to my father. So I related by saying, hey, like I've also done these father and daughter trips in my past, and I can tell you about them today because those are core memories of mine. And so I really love hearing that you have a strong bond with your son because I mean, I still think so highly of my dad and the relationship childhood that I had growing up and the trips that we've done. So that's one example. Another example with the same client, he loves golfing. I see golf balls and clubs in the corner. Another hobby that I have golfed before. I'm absolutely terrible. I don't think anyone wants to spend 18 holes with me. So another thing that technically would strike out. Um, but I think understanding like where his favorite place to go to golfing was, or if he has any tips for someone that's new trying to get into golf. People love sharing their hobbies and insights, whether you can correlate or resonate with them or not. And so building down those walls, asking about his son, every time I am now in the Kentucky area, he takes my meeting. If I call him and I have an idea or something that I want to run past him, he takes my call. This was proven in last week. He's like the head investment guy for this huge team that I work with. He set up a meeting for myself, which is very different because I'm usually the one setting up meetings. He set a meeting for myself and a colleague of mine that was traveling with me to talk to all the portfolio managers of one of the largest teams in Kentucky. This is a huge win. And this was because he respected and like working with me, kind of to Lauren's part, you're selling yourself, they're selling the partnership with you. And he respected that and wanted me to be in front of his team to share the insights and strategies we have available at BlackRock. But I wouldn't have broken through those doors and got that respect or earned the right to have that type of meeting if I didn't spend some time to get to know him and what's important to him and see how we can connect.
Yeah, curiosity is very important in our field, and being generally interested, right? So through your stories, I kind of, you have some strategies that you use, right, for different scenarios. Can you share with us other strategies that you can use to enhance self-regulation that helps you improve your sales performance? Jasmine, I will continue with you now.
Yeah. So I will tell you things that I've got either through feedback from peers, colleagues, managers, or things that I've noticed that I need to improve on. So I wrote them down. And there's 4 phrases that I would highlight or lean in. One, emphasis in building rapport. To my story earlier, taking that 1 to 2 minutes to go beyond asking someone how their weekend was or how their day. To your point, Laura, being generally curious. I'm not asking these questions to check a box and to get through the motion. I'm generally interested on what they did this weekend. And maybe if you're not generally interested in what they're doing this weekend, ask a question that you're generally interested in getting the answer. So emphasis on building rapport. I think that'll naturally make you more of a self-aware person because you realize it's not about Jasmine's agenda. It's not about Jasmine's meeting. It's about the client. Being present is huge. We live in a world where technology is super readily available. You can be reached in a second. I could text, call, Teams message, ping, you name it, in an instant and get someone's attention. So it's hard to kind of ignore all of those and be present in the time. So when I'm meeting with someone, I have technology off. I have my phone face down if it's on the table. I'm giving them direct eye contact. I'm leaning in. I'm being present, and I'm actively listening to our conversation. I'm not thinking about the 92 things that I probably could also be thinking about at the same time. The third thing is empathy. Remembering at the end of the day that we're all people. I'm a person. The client I'm meeting with is also a person. They have a family. They have friends. They have clients that are people. Really helps put in perspective your agenda. Like as sales professionals, you have a goal. There's no doubt about it. You have targets that you want to reach. But I think being empathetic and putting yourself in the client's perspective really helps you being self-aware that it's not, again, about Jasmine's agenda and what she's going to bring to the table and what she needs to share, but it's about the client and what makes most sense for him. And then the number one tip that I could give or a strategy would be to slow down. If any of my friends are on this call, they're probably laughing at me right now because they know I get this feedback all the time. And if you hear me talking fast, believe it or not, I'm actively trying to slow down right now. But it's really important to slow down. Emotional intelligence or EQ is not widely, but hugely important / can help in so many conversations. But it's super quick to pick up on a social cue and then make an assumption. Like I could have assumed that was his son and maybe it's his grandson, maybe it's his neighbor. but not making that assumption and asking again that one additional question and being general curious is important. So for me, slowing down, remembering why you're asking the questions is huge.
Those are really great points. And what resonated with me was to be present. It's very difficult, as you said, to avoid the multitasking, especially when you are virtually, you're looking at emails or trying to do 1,000 things at a time. It's very difficult to be present. And that's really what builds the connection, right? Being present. Lauren, would love to hear from you. What's your take on this? What are your strategies?
Yeah, no, of course. And Jasmine, I love those 4 points that you just went through. I definitely can resonate with all of them, especially the slow down, because I'm from the Northeast. We speak fast. And there was a time where I was covering like Wisconsin and different areas of the country where my pace was a lot different than theirs. So being aware of that has been super, like a lot of feedback from me too. But I know from myself, I think best practice has been bringing in a third party to help me really identify areas where I can improve and also identify areas where I'm excelling. So, on the desk here in Princeton, our managers are great at doing things like call coaching, peer workshops, role playing. The workshops are great because they are training sessions that are in a controlled space where you can really play out those different situations amongst peers and help each other improve on their sales performance. And then with things like call coaching, that's real time, like real deal. So being able to get that live feedback and have someone listen into you in your natural pitch is incredibly valuable. And with all of these exercises, obviously, without being said, it's what you do with the feedback that really counts. If someone has identified something that you do or do not do, take note of it. What are you doing well? That is a practice that you can share with others and may not even realize that you're doing. And what is something that maybe you need to be more aware of that you're doing and correct it? And how do you go about correcting it? So, again, bringing in that third party perspective, that just helps you get an overall awareness of what you're doing so that you can either help to educate others or correct things within yourself to just better improve your skills.
Yeah, I love that answer too. We think that coaching is only for sports people, and actually we could all benefit from having a coach throughout our lives, right? That's how you get better, and that's how you perfect your craft. So I think we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we want to explore what happens when things are not going so well. So how can sales professionals maintain their motivation, especially during challenging times or when you're facing rejection? Lauren, do you have any advice?
Yeah. So maintaining motivation and dealing with rejection is really all in your mindset. It's easier said than done, but really staying positive and looking at things as future opportunities and keep chasing your goals is really key. I mean, let's be real, rejection stinks, but with sales, it's inevitable. Whether you're selling a product or even selling yourself, like if you're interviewing for a job somewhere, you're going to be dealing with tons of rejection through the course of your life. And you really have to take it in stride, learn from it, and bounce back even stronger. Every no gets you closer to that yes. And honestly, a perfect example for me is this job. I interviewed at BlackRock 3 times over the course of 3 years. The first time I made it to the final rounds and unfortunately didn't get the job. I came back a year later and then COVID hit. So hiring freeze, that didn't work out. And a year after that, I came again and I finally got it. So no matter how many times it seemed like it wasn't meant to be and I was getting that rejection and it wasn't working out, I knew what I wanted. I wanted to work here. I wanted to be a wholesaler. And when I got it, it was so like invigorating, so self-gratifying. So it's worth it in the end. So my advice is to be tenacious, keep hustling, stay hungry, stay positive, and enjoy the ride because of the one yes out of the 100 no's is going to be well worth it.
Thank you, Lauren. And thank you for that persistence, because now we have the opportunity of working together. I'm thankful for that. Right, Jasmine, can you tell us, how do you stay motivated?
So one, Lauren, I completely agree. It is a mindset. And you have to actively wake up every day and choose that mindset. So I couldn't agree more with your thoughts. This is probably something I'm very passionate outside of emotional intelligence. I'm a big fan of this tip, and that's creating a network or a group of what I call ambassadors. And these are people that are going to bring you up during your dark days, during the 100 of no's that you got, and where you might have some self-doubt and you're like, I don't know if I'm actually set out for this job. I don't know if I'm actually good at my job. Having those brand ambassadors to help you have those conversations during the dark times is key. At the same time, having those brand ambassadors to share your successes. There is nothing better walking out of a meeting or walking out of a Zoom and calling a friend, a colleague, a peer, and say, hey, like I just crushed this meeting. This is what happened. Would love to get, like, how would you approach this? What would you do differently? And on the other side, like, oh my God, I'm having the worst day ever. My computer died. I left all the paperwork. I completely started stuttering. I don't know what's going on. It just, everything's going wrong that could. I was timid. And then having that person just to debrief your day and share your challenges is huge. Any of my managers that I've worked with have also advocated for this group of ambassadors. So that's my number one thing, is get a group of people that you can keep close to share your successes and wins. Like I said earlier, wake up every day and choose that mindset. For me, that's understanding my why. Why do I wake up and show to work every day? Some people, that could be the love for markets or the love for the products. Other people, for me, it's helping people. I never forget that there's an investor after every conversation I have. So doing that self-reflecting work is huge, to know why you wake up every day, what's going to get you past those 10 no's. And then to your point, Lauren, the best phrase of advice I've ever got when I first started on the internal desk is, Jasmine, just keep your head up. You're 10 digits away from your next yes. And so if you're getting your 10 no's, 100 no's, you're just 10 digits. You're just an email away from a yes. So you got to keep going.
Thank you both. Those are really great advice. And to our audience, please, as Daniela said, please share your questions. We will be taking some of the questions from you a little bit later on. So I think, Jasmine, you mentioned earlier the importance of empathy, right, and developing that. I would like to explore a little bit further this topic. What does the role of empathy play in sales, and how it helps you build stronger connections with your customers?
Yeah. So thinking about this, empathy, I'm actually not sure what the technical definition is, but for me, empathy plays a critical role in sales, because it helps you, again, foster that relationship and help you relate to someone. It helps you build trust. It helps you to understand a client's need. It allows you to change a transaction, a conversation for something single to a long-term partnership, which I know Lauren mentioned earlier. And so in sales, we have goals, and they can, in my role, they're monetary goals. I need to, or not need to, but I strive to reach a certain target. Outside of that, you have metrics and ways that you're measured by performance on day to day. And it's so easy to think of everything's in numbers. It's a pro for me in the sense that my brain naturally thinks in numbers, so I do enjoy it. But it's easy to get caught up on this is another meeting, this is another call, this is another XYZ amount of dollars towards a certain product. So easy to get caught up on the numbers. Empathy lets you realize at the end of the day, each meeting is a person. Again, it's a client, it's an investor that you're helping. And that empathy goes a long way. You'll be surprised how many clients, and then when I say clients, financial advisors that I work with, will share how they can tell someone is here just to check a box. They're in the area, they need another meeting, they're going to reach out. This is just a check the box exercise. They know they need to raise X amount of dollars in a product, so they need to make sure they bring it up. That's check the box and an exercise, especially when the client may have said, hey, I don't prefer these strategies or this type of investment tool, and you come in saying, well, let me tell you about this investment tool. So being empathetic allows you to tailor, again, build that trust and make it more relatable for that client. And it goes so far. To Lauren's point earlier, they want to work with you. I guarantee, I don't make any promises in my role. I think we don't use the bad G word, but I guarantee if you are empathetic and you remember that there's an individual behind the financial advisor, or there's a person sitting across from you, you will win the relationship versus your peers who are not being as empathetic.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think, our brains are wired in a way where you can spot a liar, right? We know when people are being genuine and where people are just faking it. So it's important that you believe in it so you can portray that, externally. Lauren, what's your take on these?
Yeah, I mean, really doubling down on what Jasmine said. I think it's truly as simple as just remembering that these are human beings at the end of the day. They have their own lives, both inside and outside of work. When it comes to their jobs, especially with those that are in the same industry as us in finance, they're dealing with the same stress that we are. Challenging markets, difficult customers. In the past 2 years, when the markets have been down, we don't want to sit here and deny that we weren't struggling. Like, be honest with them. We want to emphasize that, yes, we went through it with you, but we're actively working on solutions to get better. So now let us help you and let's do this together. And then with their personal lives, when you talk to them informally and build your rapport, if you find that they share things that are going on with them, and trust me, people do, be understanding, check in, try not to judge the situation. You want to be the therapist. Like, if somebody's telling you that they have a sick family member, for instance, and they're dealing with that and they're dealing with hard times, maybe not the best time to push a sales pitch down their throats. Just kind of sit there and be a listener and give advice, be a friend, be a therapist. My biggest thing, and a quote that I don't know if it actually exists or if I just made it up in my head, but be there for when times are bad so that they'll come to you when times are good. I think that's really key to showing that empathy.
That's great. Thank you, Lauren. And so before we move into our audience questions, can you share some tips on how to develop social skills to foster those meaningful relationships? We're going to continue with you, Lauren.
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me, I've always been a social butterfly and can talk to anyone about anything. So it comes a little more naturally for me, but that's not always the case. But at the end of the day, you want to make a conversation meaningful. Make sure that you're being genuine. Pay attention. Be a good listener. Find things that you can relate to. Find those common grounds. Ask questions. Be curious, to Jasmine's point earlier. Pick up on those social cues and body language. Be present. Be vulnerable. Be mindful of nonverbal communications like your own posture and eye contact. And show empathy. Really taking a lot of what we've been talking about for the last 38 minutes and putting it to practice. It's going to take time to develop these skills. Like I said, some it might come for more naturally than others, but even so, you're going to forever be working on improving these skills throughout the course of your life and while you're in sales.
Yeah, and there's always places where you can try these, right? Like even at home, trying to persuade someone, my kids to eat more vegetables. I can try that, empathetic advice. So, Jasmine, do you have any other tips for us?
Going and double down on everything Lauren said. 2 tips that I would add that helped me is, again, that self-reflecting work. When you're in social settings, what do you gravitate to? What's the type of person you gravitate to? It's the person that's usually have a warm smile. They're not on their phone looking down. So in a social setting, make sure you have a warm smile and you're not at your phone looking down. So doing that self-reflecting work of like, who would you want to approach you, or how do you like being approached? And then being that person is huge. I, like Lauren, is also a social butterfly. Being in a room full of strangers is like my heaven. It's a weird quirk of mine. I have best friends that I think are equally outgoing, and that is their worst nightmare. And so, to your point, Laura, you can always improve on your social setting skills. One tip of advice is practice makes perfect, or maybe not perfect, but practice definitely helps. Getting more reps under your belt will definitely help with having conversations and building rapport and putting all these skills that we've talked about to test. One tip that's super, super easy, and I don't think we do enough of, is complimenting someone. Now, you have to be genuine in your compliments. Do not compliment someone and don't mean it, because they'll pick up on that. But think about it. If you're you're in the mall or in the grocery store and you're like, hey, I see you have the new iPhone. Like, do you like it? Or I love your top. Where did you get it from? Complimenting someone especially helps if you have an open question. Will get them talking. And then you're now interacting with a stranger that you probably wouldn't have. You're going to be able to put all these skills and test to practice. And the more you do that, the easier to get. And I probably said this 1,000 times now, a broken record, but remembering at the end of the day, like, we all are just people. And so there's a lot to be nervous about. I get it. It's not as easy for everyone. But if you remember, like, hey, this is just a person, I'm being nice, no one will turn that down.
Those are really great tips. And we have some questions from the audience, so we're going to go to them. The first one is, how do you do these? How do you do these over email rather when you're in person or Zoom? How do you structure your emails? Either
I
of
can,
you can take it.
yeah, I can start with this, and Lauren, feel free to jump in. The great question. I'm not going to stand or sit. I'm actually sitting. I'm not going to sit here in front of you and say it's so easy to build rapport over the phone. I think it's actually 10 times harder. In person, I'm able to pick up on these physical cues that I'm seeing. Where on the phone, you can't. So over the phone, I think your pitch, your pace of your voice, if you're passionate about something, don't hide it. Let them know, like, hey, this is something I'm really passionate about. I've helped XYZ advisors on this, and I think like the more I know about your business, I think this might be something that you might interest taking a look at. Show that passion. Use your voice and inflection points. Over email, if you're talking to a client and they mention they're catching a baseball game, like say it in your email, like enjoy the game. Or if you follow up and like, hey, I know you mentioned that you went to the park 2 weeks ago. I don't know, like bring any personal, just a one line, it'll be huge. I can't tell you how many emails that I get daily that I don't get a personal touch, but the one that I do, I remember who sends it. I remember who I want to reach out to. So those are things that I would do. Put it in an email, use your voice. If it's over Zoom, use your hands. I actually just listened to this podcast called The It Factor, and it shared raising your hands or showing your hands the first 5 seconds in a Zoom meeting breaks down someone's wall. I don't know why that is. I think it's like your primal instinct, like you're not, you don't have anything that you could harm someone with in your hands. So I've been doing that. I've been showing my hands in meetings and like hopefully building down or breaking down those walls to help that conversation. I hope that helps. Lauren, feel free to add.
Yeah, no, really echoing what you just said, like adding that personal touch through emails is key. I just had an advisor that I was speaking with this morning, and before even getting her name, she was talking to me about how she's been having really bad headaches the last few days. And my response email to her after I finished our conversation was, I hope you feel better. Like, make sure to take Excedrin, like just making that connection to what I just spoke with her about. You're not always going to have that privilege where you'll get to talk to somebody first before sending out an email. So if you can find anything like through online, through websites, through research, through notes, like I know internally here, we have a system that we all kind of jot down different things about advisors that we might remember. So if you can add any kind of personal touch to email, just so that they feel like they're more than just a regular spam email, that'll more likely get a jump back and a response back for you.
Yeah, I think it's important also that you get that information, because otherwise you're going to think that you're a stalker. So just great. We have another question. I think it's a great segue from the previous one. It's, when meeting a new client, how do you lead in a personal conversation to reach them through the empathetic connection, and then before getting into the business, sales talk? How do you nurture that long term as well?
Yeah, I can kind of bounce off of what I just was saying in regards to like doing a little bit of research, like doing your homework. I know for me, like before I call out to any new clients that I haven't connected with, I look them up on LinkedIn. I see where they went to high school, when they went to college, what firms that they've been at previously. I'll Google them. And sometimes I've had like wedding registries come up for advisors. So I'll use that as a segue into my small talk. Be like, oh, I went to Google you today and I saw your wedding registry on Zola. Like, congratulations. How's that going? Like, where are you getting married? And just pulling from that research to initiate some kind of spark. And it can be hit or miss. There's definitely been a lot of misses, but it's something. And I mean, through the natural rapport that you're going to build, like, how was your day? Where are you from? Where do you live? What do you do? Like, it's part of your team. And you'll have that business conversation too with it, because you're going to naturally ask questions about what they're doing in their business and really where I can add value to them as a partner. Because I think that's for us, our biggest thing is being a partner to our clients, not just being a salesperson, a product pusher, none of that. Like, we're a consultant, we're a partner to you. We're here to help you and be a resource to you whenever we need you. So it comes naturally when you're having that business conversation, you'll learn enough about the business. But when it comes to trying to find that more personal information, you'll get those cues even through the phone from the advisors. Some people will be really short with their answers and not open up as much, and they want to just stick it to business and that's it. So then you make sure that you bring that value add there that they're looking for. But then other people are like open books and they just want to spill their guts and tell you everything that's going on with their life, and they love it and they want to just have that conversation with you. Jasmine, not sure if there's anything that you can add when you're building on new prospecting clients.
I think you hit on the nail on the head. Is a lot of homework and research. I don't want to use the word homework because that has a negative connotation, but doing preparing. You're preparing for this conversation, and I think there's no harm in mentioning, sitting on the client like, hey, I actually spent some time preparing for our discussion today, and I saw that you went to XYZ school. That won't come off as weird. It shows that you actually care enough to do a little bit of research, took time every day to get to know them. I really resonate with this question because I shared earlier, I moved to Cincinnati about a year and a half ago. The clients that I now cover, I did not cover them ever in my career before. So for the first whole year, I was walking into every office for the first time, not knowing who may be on the other side of the door. We may have exchanged an email saying, hey, I'm in town. Would you be willing to meet? So I didn't know much besides my preparation. One question that I've found some success is asking, how did you get your start in the business? And that will really lead them to go to so many different ways. They may talk about personally why they got into finance or financial advisor seat. They may talk about professionally why they pursued this career. And I think that's an important question because it's usually not in the homework that we can do of their school or their value add. It's like, hey, how'd you fall into this career? I can share how I fell into this career. So I think a key there is asking a question where you can also open up and tell something about yourself because they're going to want to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I love those answers. It's so important to become that trusted advisor, right? In our connections. Do you ever use negotiation skills within your role?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
So yes and no. And Lauren, maybe you have a different answer. So I would love to hear your thoughts. I would say yes in the sense that we're not negotiating maybe a deal per se, like a price structure, but we are pivoting. I may come with, I think this is the perfect solution because of X, the problems that you just mentioned, but this may not be your comfort zone. So I need to pivot to something that makes more sense. I think in that sense, I'm negotiating the sense of I'm not leading with the product anymore. I'm pivoting to something else. I think in the other sense, maybe doubling down or like, hey, I know this is like not a product you typically use. And I know maybe you've been burned in the past, but I would love to just have a 10-minute conversation just to share why we think it's important to know that it's available. So it's rearranging, especially if it's a product that you know that'll help them. I encourage to challenge them a bit. As like you said, Laura, trusted advisor, my job is not to be your yes man. I would not be doing you any value if I was your West woman and I said yes and you had the greatest ideas of all time. I think there's some skill there. Like you don't want to go for the jugular, and if they strongly dislike something, you're like, no, this is the best thing. You need to listen to me. I think there's some art and science to having that conversation. But I think in a way that does practice and exercise those typical negotiation skills to pivot.
Yeah, Jasmine, I could agree with you. I mean, when I hear the word negotiation, like I refer it back to my experience as being a realtor and my parents being realtors, like where you're going back and forth, negotiating price, like lowballing, highballing, like doing stuff like that to get the deal. It's not so much like that in our role. Again, we are like a consultant and a partner. So you tell us your problems and we're here to provide you with different options of solutions and try to find what is the best fit for you. And like Jasmine said, maybe there are certain products that you don't use or aren't really interested in using, have been burned in the past by, or just are plain not knowledgeable about. So I wouldn't use negotiating as the word to describe it. I would say more as like educating. Like we're educating you on what these different options are, how they can benefit you, how they might compare to competitors if you're using like competitor funds against ours. Um, and really just being that resource to you to help you find what you best need at the end of the day. There's probably other areas in BlackRock and other roles that are negotiating. Like I don't want to say for certain, but like let's say if like maybe like the national accounts team when they're working with the institutions, like and Spider Rock, which is a product that we have, like they're negotiating some fees and stuff like that. That's nothing at all having to do with me and Jasmine's role. But there can be parts of that in the firm. Like if negotiating brings you energy, we probably have something here that incorporates that for you.
Yeah, I do a little bit of negotiating, and we can talk about that in a different webinar. But so Very Good Boss has observed that women tend not to be very comfortable talking about, advertising themselves or taking ownership about their amazing careers or their achievements. So we have a tradition here to ask our panelists about their accomplishments, either personal or professional, and we'll love to hear from you. So we're going to start with Lauren.
Yeah, of course. For me, I'm very glad to say that I feel like I've accomplished a lot in my life, and especially at a young age. I have had an amazing support system, and I think having a little bit of that aggressive personality has helped out a little bit too. But my biggest accomplishment, aside from getting the role of my dreams, is also buying my first home when I was 24 years old. That actually all came to fruition for me, I think, around the same time, like when I got the offer from BlackRock and when I purchased my first home. So not many people my age can say that they've done the same, and if you can, that is amazing. um, but I just remember like kind of speaking with my parents, being like, "Listen, this is what I want. I want to buy a house. I need to move out. I need to be a little bit away from you guys for a little bit." um, and I went and I knocked on doors. I wrote handwritten notes asking people like, "I'm interested in your home. Can I talk to you about selling it to me?" I did my research. I would go on foreclosure websites and all this different stuff. And I pounded pavement until I got something and brought it to fruition. So I'm very proud of it. I renovated everything. I redid everything over. So, and now I'm looking for my second property, which is super exciting. But that's just one of, I feel like, many accomplishments that I've gone through. Like I'm also the first person in my entire family generation to graduate college, which is a big deal too. So a lot of good stuff. And again, just having that positive mindset and being driven and a hustler and a go-getter has brought me to where I am today. So I would advocate for that for anybody else, like looking to get after some things too and achieve their goals.
Great, Lauren. Jasmine, over to you.
Yeah, so I definitely fall in the category where of women that do not like bragging or taking ownership. I don't think I'm doing this, but I've gotten feedback that I often downplay things. In fact, I got this feedback at 10:30 this morning on a call I had with my colleague, and they said, Jasmine, don't let the facts get away from a good story. Like you have a win here. So I definitely resonate with as well. Something I'm super proud of is my career. It was not sunshine and roses and flowers when I first joined. It's a typical male dominated industry, especially on the internal desk. That's where I started. I think there was another female, and I use the word think because I'm not 100% positive there was when I joined, but there probably was one other individual. And so it wasn't super warm and fuzzy and accepting of me, another person being on the desk. And so to grind, to hustle, and to show that like I deserve to be here just as much as anyone else and have made it far in my career. I'm a younger professional. I don't have 10 years of experience in this role yet, but I do think I still provide a lot of value to my clients. And so to be able to have helped as many people I've had, to be able to show people that look like me, who might be from a diverse background or a woman going to a traditionally industry that doesn't look like you, that you can also do it. It's something that I'm super proud of, and something if you give me 5 minutes to talk about, I will take the whole 5 minutes to talk about.
That's really great, and it resonated with me. I'm going to just quickly share. They asked me to share my story too quickly, and I'm proud that I was able to, becoming a trader in Wall Street. It took me moving from 3 countries, and unfortunately we moved from like the open cry to just virtual. But I did work on Wall Street as a trader, and there were not many people that looked like me on that role, and I'm very proud of that. And I also have a family, and maybe balancing the 2 dreams is something of a topic for another webinar. But before we wrap up, we have like 1 minute answer If you were to give yourself, your younger self an advice, what would that be? And we'll start with Jasmine.
Yes. So I have this advice on a sticky note that I wrote down, and it's honestly the feedback that I got in my end of year review, and it's to use your voice. So I would tell my younger self to use your voice. I was so nervous joining this industry, thinking I needed to wear a navy blue suit, which I will just quick notice that none of us are wearing a navy blue suit, but I thought I needed to wear a crisp navy blue suit, white button down. I need to have my hands folded. I needed to use the biggest finance jargon words that I ever heard of. And that's not true. If you are invited to the table, feel open and encouraged to speak. Use your voice. So that'd be my number one thing. Even if you're not confident, fake it till you make it until you get that confidence, and use your voice.
No, Jasmine, I love that. Yeah, I definitely love that, and staying true to who you are, be undeniably yourself. Love that advice. For me, mine would probably be to my younger self to relax. Like, don't stress the little things. Know that everything's going to work out the way that they're meant to, and just keep striving towards your goals, and you can truly accomplish anything that you really put your mind to.
Well, we are near the end, and thank you so much for both of you, and thank you all our audience for joining us today. You gave us some fantastic advice, and we all learned so much. I took a lot of notes, and I think we learned that sales, whether they come to you via nature like Lauren or nurture like Jasmine, we can all work on developing our emotional intelligence skills, and that becomes like your secret superpower, right? To build that strong relationships with our clients and understanding their needs, from being hyper aware of your surroundings and reading the environment, to reading the nonverbal cues, being a chameleon and adapt, develop that deep connection, and by being really genuinely interested in what the people are saying, finding a coach and your ambassador, you're down, and look for to be persistent and enjoy the ride. That's also fun for Lauren. Create a wins folder. Be on the same side of the table as your clients, and practice self-reflection. So many things. Use your voice and be persistent. Those are among the things that we heard today, and really are fantastic. Thank you all of you who tuned in for today's discussion. As a reminder, we'll be sending you a recording of today's event, along with resources to learn more about opportunities here at BlackRock. In the meantime, be sure to check out our BlackRock profile and Jobs on Very Good Boss. And we'd love to hear your feedback. I think Daniela mentioned it. Please, we want to improve future events, so please go ahead on the forum tab on the right-hand side of your screen to share your thoughts. It's just a 1-minute survey. As we talked about, we always can improve. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and see you next time.